Hey classes, my name is Mr. Hammond and I'm here to talk to you today about measurement. Now I know a common complaint among students is, why are we learning this? How will I use this in my future life? Do I really need to know this? And there's some things in science that you don't necessarily need to know in the sense that you won't use them on a day-to-day basis when you get older. A lot of what we do in school is give you a plethora of skills in the hopes that when you do find what your passion is, you can use your abilities and skills to pursue that passion. So we kind of got to give you a broad base of understanding, so when you do find your special interest, you can pursue that and you have enough basic skills to get there. And you've learned how to learn. But with measurement, it's a little different, because measurement is actually something you will use throughout your life. Every single person I know uses measurement, not on a daily basis, but at some point in their life to do something. If you're building, if you're cooking, if you're a creator on Etsy, if you work as a scientist, if you work as a construction worker, if you decide to become a downtown waiter or cook, any of those things will lead to using measurement. That being said, it's important that you learn how to measure things accurately, especially using the metric system, as it's a worldwide system that everybody uses throughout the world. And any skills you learn measuring with metrics will also transfer over using the U.S. traditional standard system of like inches and yards. So it's not just good enough to know the basics, but you need to be able to measure things accurately. There's a saying when it comes to building something out of wood: measure twice, cut once. And that's probably one of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard when it comes to measuring. I've built a number of things in my life: furniture, game consoles, all sorts of fun stuff, because I enjoy doing that. And I can't tell you how many times I measured once, made my cuts, and found out there was a mistake. And I suffered from a loss of money and product because of it. So what we're doing in science by learning how to measure is super important. It's something you're going to use throughout the rest of your schooling. And who knows what you'll become later in life where you need to have this skill. Better to learn it now so you don't have to learn it later. So as you continue through this, remember, this is not a useless skill you're learning. It's something that's going to be valuable to your life, and it may, in fact, be something that your job depends upon. All right? Today we're going to be learning, or in this course, you're going to be learning how to measure with a meter stick in centimeters and in meters. You're going to be learning how to measure the regular object, something that has a height, width, and length. And you're going to be learning how to measure the volume of an irregular object, something that has no formal height, width, and length, or something that would be hard to measure using a meter stick or a metric ruler. Those are three skills you need to have. And the fourth one we're going to look at is a balance. How do you use a digital scale to measure the mass of something? And I got to tell you, I use this one every single week because I love to cook, and I've given up on cups. I've given up on tablespoons. I do everything with the metric system, and it has made my cooking faster, better, in so many ways. And I use a scale for everything. So who knows? Maybe you'll find yourself changing the way you even cook those chocolate chip cookies at Christmas time. Maybe you'll be able to influence your parents and help them learn how to cook faster and more efficiently using a metric scale. So please, this is not a waste. It's worth it. It's worth your time. Take your time to learn the skill well. All right, let's hop to it. All right, so first we're going to take a look at a meter stick and how it's put together. Unlike inches, and you always know this is an inch side because you got these big numbers and you got these big spaces, right? So inches are divided up into fourths and eighths, which means fractions is a necessary thing. Meter stick doesn't use fractions, guys. We flip this over, it uses decimals. Everything about the meter stick is in powers of 10 because we have 10 fingers, and we count by tens. First thing you want to look at is these numbers right here. All right, those numbers represent centimeters. Okay, and a meter stick is made up of 100 centimeters. You will not ever really find a meter stick that has 0 printed. So whenever you get a meter stick, you've got to look very closely and decide where is the 0. Now in some meter sticks, you'll find that the 0 is actually at the end of the meter stick. This one, which I think is a lot better, doesn't do that. It starts a little bit after the end of the meter stick. And the reason this company probably made this decision is meter sticks get beat up on the end. And if we looked at some of my other ones in my closet, you'd notice that a lot of them are kind of rounded at the edges and all beat up, so they don't accurately represent where the 0 marker is. So in this point, that first black line right there, that's the 0. And that's where you want to start all your measurements. It's really important because a lot of kids will start just at the end because it's easy and they're not really paying close attention to what they're doing. And when you do that, you're off by a couple millimeters. So getting back to a centimeter. Each one of these black lines, the longer black lines, are a centimeter. These smaller black lines, not the really tiny ones, but the ones in between there, those represent halfway between, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. But this goes all the way up to 100. So I'm going to move it on past here, all the way up to here. Okay, so again, same thing as the beginning. That black line represents 100. Why don't they print 100? Because they can't fit it onto the meter stick. So it has 100 centimeters in it, which makes sense because centi means 100 times. So a centimeter is 100 times smaller than a meter. So that's what you're most commonly going to be using is centimeters. You'll also be using millimeters to fine-tune your measurements. For example, if something is in between 96 and 97, well, how do I mark that? So they have a smaller interval called millimeters. And the millimeters are those really tiny ones. And they're 10 millimeters in every centimeter. To make it easier in measurement so we don't have to count those tiny little lines, because that's really pretty hard, especially for old men like me who can't see as well as we used to, they have these kind of medium lines, and that represents the middle, and that's going to be the 5. So if I want to know 96.5 or 96.5, it's going to be right at that middle marker right there. It makes it a lot easier. So I know 91, 92, 93, 94 are going to be in that first half. 96, 97, 98, 99 are going to be in the second half. So most commonly when you measure, you'll be using centimeters and millimeters. There is also something called a decimeter, which is not really used a lot. In fact, I don't think I've ever used a decimeter, but it's interesting to know about. A deci means 10 times smaller. So a decimeter is 10 times smaller than a meter. Simply put, there are 10 decimeters in a meter stick. So those are shown at the 10 markers, and you'll notice how those numbers are bigger. So this would be 10 centimeters, or you just get rid of the 0, 1 decimeter. All right? And this would be 20 centimeters or 2 decimeters, and so on and so forth, all the way down to here. So this is actually 9 decimeters or 90 centimeters. All right. Now that we've kind of got a basis on how this thing works, we're going to practice measuring in both centimeters and millimeters.